Hello and welcome to the Culture Swally, a podcast dedicated to Scottish news and pop culture. My name is Nicky, and I'm joined, as always, by the man who I would do anything for without hesitation. And I know he'd do the same for me. It's Greg. How are you today, buddy?
Very well. That's a nice opening. Usually I'm getting a bit of a roasting related to the topic, but...
Yeah, well, the subject matter that we're speaking about today, I didn't think it was appropriate. I did actually write down, joined by the man who plays the guitar like he has nerve damage in his hands, but that's not true, and I didn't want to... it's not appropriate. Yeah. Today is all about friendship and the beauty of friendship and the fact that you would do anything for your best friends. So I thought, this is going to be a very different episode today, I think, folks. The beginning is going to be the usual fucking nonsense from Scotland, but when we come on to what we're going to be talking about later, I think it's going to be a very different episode. Yeah. So how are you anyway? Everything been good?
I'm good. I don't know if you've noticed here, but I've got a new chair.
Oh yes, very nice. Very posh.
The chair that I've been sitting in since we started doing the podcast back in 2020 is a chair that my wife bought for the desk. So it was, and my wife's not very tall, so it's sort of designed and purchased with her in mind. And as a result, whenever we do the pod, because my knees, because it's a bit lower to the ground, even on its highest setting, my knees are bent and I'm sort of hunched over and stuff. I'm always a bit stiff after, especially if we do a bit of a longer episode. So I bought this kind of mastermind type chair. But the first time I sat in it was on Thursday night, because we were doing it was like parents' night, and gone are the days when you go to school and meet the parents. Now it's a sort of webinar thing. Yeah. You get like sort of 4 minutes per. You get 4 minutes per teacher. So we're running a wee bit late on Thursday, so I quickly logged in, and I logged in before I sat down. So I've logged in, I said to the teacher, "Hi, sorry I'm a little bit late," and then I've sat in the chair, but I've leaned back, not realising that it... So as I've leaned back, I've gone, "Oh, fuck!" And had to apologise to Mrs. Hassan for my unfortunate language. Fortunately, she saw the funny side of it. I don't think she'll hold it against me or my daughter.
It does look like a mastermind chair. What would your specialist subject be on mastermind?
I know quite a lot about James Bond. I know quite a lot about The Who. I know a little bit about Scottish media and culture.
Oh yeah, you do actually.
Yeah. I just say, in what year did a baker in East Kilbride order a sex doll from Amazon and then pretend it was a mistake?
I was in a bar last night and I wanted to take a photo, but I thought, I'm not taking a photo of the toilets, but the gents' toilet had a photo of Sean Connery on the gents' toilet, and the ladies' toilet, it was a photo of Ursula Andress.
Wow.
Which I thought was a nice touch. Yeah. But the toilets were right next to the bar, so I didn't want to whip my phone out and take a photo of the toilet, especially just in case I'm in position, ready to take a photo, and the door opens, and some female standing there, like, "What you doing? Taking a photo inside the ladies' toilets?" I'm like, "No, I'm trying to take a photo of Ursula Andress to send to my mate." Like, might look a little bit dodgy. Anyway, you have got another apology to make, Greg, I think. Yeah, we've had an email into the Culture Swally, and an email from Olivia. And Olivia says, "Hi, this is the first time I've listened to your podcast, and I enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much, Olivia.
Thank you,
much
Olivia.
Appreciated. I am a massive fan of Peter Capaldi, and I have watched Soft Top, Hard Shoulder at least 10 times. It was great hearing people talk about Soft Top, as it's an underrated gem and doesn't get talked about much outside of the Peter Capaldi fandom." I agree with you on that, Olivia, actually. Yeah, it is. However, I have to disagree with your statement. Now, I think it was your statement, Greg, that Peter Capaldi isn't handsome. Both Peter, as a young and older man, is very attractive and charming. He has a lovely smile, a deep expressive voice, long elegant hands, and shampoo advert-worthy hair. Peter, and his incarnation of the Doctor, is even widely considered to be something of a sex symbol in Doctor Who fandom, for being a silver fox, and his Doctor for having 3 love interests, Clara, Missy, and River. Peter definitely, even now, has the looks and charm of a leading man and could easily play the lead role in a rom-com with the right script. I still really enjoy the podcast and can't wait to listen to more episodes. You guys should check out The Lair of the White Worm. It doesn't take place in Scotland, but Peter's character, Angus Flint, is extremely Scottish, even fighting off vampires in a kilt whilst playing the bagpipes in the climax. Best, Olivia. So, would you like to apologise to Olivia for saying that Peter Capaldi isn't handsome?
If I said that, then I do apologise.
You did.
I thought what I said was that he wasn't... I thought he said that he wasn't conventionally handsome and he was a bit unusual looking.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of agreed in a way, so I can take some of the blame. I would say in Soft Top he is handsome. I've never watched any of his Doctor Who episodes, but from the photos I've seen, I can understand why he would be a sex symbol in Doctor Who fandom, because he's got this lovely, smoky Scottish voice.
He does, yeah.
And he looks good. When I think of Capaldi, I immediately think of Malcolm Tucker. And as Malcolm Tucker, he's quite gaunt. He's wearing an ill-fitting suit, and he just looks like he smells like Benson and Hedges.
He does, yeah.
So it's kind of that's maybe what I think of when I think of Capaldi. However, if I think back to Soft Top, think back to Local Hero, he is a very handsome man, actually. Yeah. And I listen to, not to promote another podcast, but hey, it's probably one of the biggest podcasts in the world anyway. I listened to his episode on Off Menu, and he's just such a fucking great guy. I don't know if you've listened to the episode.
No, I need to do it.
He's perfect, Capaldi. Like he for his starter, he picks calamari, and James Acaster's like, "Would you ever do an Old Boy?" And he's like, "What's Old Boy?" And he's like, "You've not seen Old Boy?" He's like, "No." He goes, "Oh, he in one scene he eats a live octopus, like, and he does it for real, like, and he bites into it, and you see the tentacles wrapping around it. Would you do that?" And Capaldi just goes, "Fuck off."
I was actually, when I was on my travels in the last couple of weeks, I was rewatching some of my favourite episodes of The Thick of It. Unfortunately, the platform that I was watching it on didn't have my absolute favourite episodes, and those are the ones called The Rise of the Nutters with, what's the other Scottish guy that's in those episodes? He's in The Loop as well.
I know exactly who you mean. I can't remember. His name's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
He's in Line of Duty.
He's in Line of Duty. Well, he was in Complicity as well. Paul, the actor's name is Paul Higgins. Yeah, but I was trying to remember the character's name. I can't remember if it was Gavin or something like that.
I think it might be.
Yeah, and it's just like with him and Capaldi his character and Tucker just like eviscerating people. I just find it very, very funny.
I need to go and watch that again.
Yeah.
Those episodes are absolute quality. Yeah, I need to watch that again. You're right.
I mean, I'm brilliant. I find, I'm always interested in what sort of physical qualities women look for in a man, and I know that it'll vary from lady to lady, but I've never heard a lady sort of point out someone's long, elegant hands as a as a sort of attractive physical attribute.
They have their uses, Greg.
Well, this is true. I mean, he's very, very good on the guitar, for example.
Yeah.
Waving his sonic screwdriver about.
Anyway, apologies, Olivia.
Sorry, Olivia.
But yes, we've rectified that. He's a very handsome man. Totally agree. Okay, right. Shall we have a look at what's been happening in Scotland over the last couple of weeks, Greg?
Let's do it. Oh, cue the jingle.
Hello, this is the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation, and here is what's been going on in the news.
Okay, Greg, what is your first news story this week that you'd like to share with me and our lovely listeners?
Well, my first one comes from the Daily Record on the 20th of February. It's by the reporter Sarah Vesty, and the headline reads, "Scottish Highlands ranked as the safest place to survive a zombie apocalypse." Really, it's quite comforting to know that people are sitting around doing surveys on things that could never possibly happen. You know what I mean? But anyway. So it says the Scottish Highlands have been ranked as the safest place to survive a zombie apocalypse. A new study has found Argyll and Bute came a close second, with the Western Isles, Orkney and Stirling also featuring in the top 10 places.
Stirling?
I mean, I think it might have happened in Stirling already. Obvious factors that were taken into account included population density and the availability of useful survival resources such as supermarkets and outdoor supply doors. But the number of lakes, garages, medical centres, and other valuable amenities were also examined to discover areas with the best survival supplies. The study, conducted by Jeff Bett, that's all one word, it's not some guy called Jeff Bett, it sounds like a sort of company, it must be like a betting website, gave a score of 74.04 out of a possible 130 points to the picturesque Scottish Highlands. A standout strength was the remarkably low population density, which was seen as a crucial factor in navigating post-apocalyptic challenges. The wilderness areas were identified as being the perfect location for foraging and setting up remote shelters away from others, securing second place with a respectable score of 71.27 points is Argyll Butte. Known for its remote and secluded setting, this area is a prime location for surviving tough times. I can only imagine that Stirling was put in there because they've got a few supermarkets then, just based on the criteria that the reporters laid out.
Is it because maybe the monument as well, like because it's high up and maybe zombies can't climb up there as well?
I think the zombies will be too fucked from climbing the steep hill to...
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
But Stirling Castle's quite high as well. You could bring the drawbridge up.
How do you think they've done the research to base this on? Like, have they just watched like The Walking Dead and Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead and Shaun of the Dead and 28 Days Later? Like, how have they worked out like nobody knows what zombies are actually going to be like?
Well, that's the thing. Like Zack Snyder and Danny Boyle, or rather Alex Garland, imagined zombies that could run quite fast. Which is quite scary, because I always felt, as much as Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead are perhaps two of my favourite ever films. The original Night of the Living Dead, it's been remade about 1,000 times, but the original old black and white one and the original Dawn of the Dead are two of my faves. But I was never particularly worried about zombies when I was younger, because I thought, they're slow as fuck. You know what I mean? And then 28 Days Later came out, and they're not slow. In fact, they're pretty fast. And I didn't really fancy my chances as a 25-year-old young man who was out every night and smoked about 20 fags a day, outrunning a determined zombie, to be quite honest. I'm not even that sure that... I don't even fancy my chances now, to be quite honest.
So did that start to worry you then after you saw that? You thought, oh, maybe I better get fit and stop the fags, because in case there is a zombie apocalypse, because it is highly likely, isn't it? Jesus Christ. I mean, why are they wasting money putting stuff into studies like this?
Well, I mean, it is Jeff Bett. Let's see what Jeff Bett is, because
I thought you said Jeff Beck to start with, and I was like, Jesus, what's Jeff Beck doing a study of zombie apocalypse for?
Especially when he's dead.
Yeah, well, maybe he's been reanimated.
Maybe he did it before he died, because he thought he might get a chance to come back and play Hi Ho Silver Lining one more time.
He's trying to do this study to find out the places to avoid, because he knows they're the worst places to go if he's a zombie.
Yeah.
Better avoid Stirling. I'll just go to Falkirk instead.
I thought maybe the zombies might avoid the Scottish Highlands, because famously that's where Jimmy Savile ran away to.
That's a very good point. He was, he did like a dead body.
Even zombies are wary of fundraising nonsense. Well, necrophiliac, right? Apparently.
Yeah, it was.
So, zombies are like, fuck that, you know.
But then would zombies be safe? Because technically they're dead, but then they still are alive in a way. They're reanimated, so maybe Savile wouldn't be interested.
Maybe not.
Maybe the kiddie zombies. Anyway.
So Jeff Bett is an official betting website, by the way. I'm not sure why they're commissioning studies on zombie apocalypses, but they are.
That's fair enough. Well, Jeff Bett, if you'd like to sponsor the Culture Swally, you can get in touch with us on cultureswally@gmail.com.
Okay, so anyway, that's my first story this week. What's your first story?
My first story comes from the Scottish Sun this week, Greg, and the headline is Radio Gaga. A sailor blocked a coastguard emergency channel off the coast of Shetland by playing Radio 4 non-stop for 12 hours. Shetland Coast Guard had to contact the BBC for help after a ship afloat somewhere near the islands accidentally broadcast the Radio 4 station on the Maritime Emergency Channel by keeping a microphone on. The Distress and Safety frequency, known as VHF Channel 16, experienced intermittent interference on February the 5th as a sailor listened to episodes of The Archers, Woman's Hour, and Just a Minute. Radio 4 had to broadcast a message asking all vessels in the area to check their sets. The message said, This is an important safety message related on behalf of His Majesty's Coast Guard. This radio programme is being transmitted over VHF channel 16 by a vessel with an open mic. This is blocking all distress, urgency and safety broadcasts. All vessels in the vicinity of South East Shetland are requested to check their radios to ensure that the microphone transmit button is not being inadvertently held open. Laura Kay, the team leader of Shetland Coast Guard, told Radio 4's Broadcasting House programme how the incident unfolded. She said, "The Day Watch had Radio 4 coming through the transmission. It was transmitting for about 12 hours at various levels of clarity. In our policy, there is actually a bit that says, if you can hear a radio station, you can contact them and ask them to broadcast a safety message. We have had incidents before where there's been a fault with the equipment. If you spilled something on the handset, the buttons could stick, or it's just not been properly set down." The team leader added there had been no incidents during the period, that's good, that the channel was blocked. The Coast Guard said that VHF channel 16 must be kept clear for distress and urgent traffic only, and urged mariners to regularly check the radio equipment to ensure that it is in good condition to avoid accidental transmissions. So, have you ever accidentally broadcast something that you didn't mean to broadcast? Have you ever listened to The Archers or Woman's Hour?
Well, I mean, I accidentally broadcast the sound of myself having a piss when I was in a Teams meeting a couple of years ago during the pandemic. Which luckily one of my colleagues sent me a WhatsApp, so I was able to stop. I was on my AirPods. I didn't realise that I hadn't muted my microphone before I slipped away to relieve myself. I mean, I used to listen to quite a lot of Radio 4 when I worked in the UK because I did a lot of driving, and like I wasn't really on top of podcasts sort of 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So I used to listen to a lot of radio, and I did used to listen to The Archers. I'll be very honest, I would listen to The World at 1.
Oh.
If I was in the car during the day, in the afternoon, I would listen to The World at 1 for the news. Then I would listen to The Archers, and then at 2 o'clock every weekday, Radio 4 has like an hour long like drama, like one-off drama, which I would listen to. And then in the evening, if I was on the road at night, I would listen to the 6 o'clock news. Then I would listen to, there's always like a comedy show on at 6:30, like the news quiz, or sometimes just a minute. And then the Archers, and then hopefully I'll be home by then. So yeah, you have to keep yourself awake when you're on the road a lot, you know.
And what's better than listening to The Archers? I don't think I've ever listened to an episode of The Archers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very good, but people... well, in my opinion, but like it's like it's the longest running soap like across TV and radio like ever. So it's been running since like the 40s and 50s, I think, on the BBC.
Yeah.
So it must be doing something right. It's not for me to actually say whether it's good or not. But it certainly kept me awake when I was on the road. So thank you to The Archers. And it's got a good theme tune.
Very good. That's true. Yeah, I do know the theme tune. Yeah. Well, I'm just glad that there was no incidents that occurred during the 12-hour broadcast of Radio 4. But at least everyone got to listen to Radio 4 during that.
But at least everybody would have heard the shipping forecast. If it was on for 12 hours, the shipping.
That's true.
They still play the shipping forecast on Radio 4.
That's true. Yeah, that's a very valid point. So maybe he was doing a good service, or she. I don't know who it was that broadcast that for 12 hours. But never mind. Thankfully, nothing happened. Okay.
Do you remember? Sorry, just on that. Do you remember the old Chewing the Fat sketch? Because you know how like the shipping forecast, it's got these weird names for different parts of the sea. And the Chewing the Fat sketch, there's barnacles just off the sticky clinker, Captain. It's really funny.
Oh dear. Okay. What else have you seen this week, Greg?
So this is a story that comes from the Scottish Sun on the 20th of February. It's a couple of days ago. Although it was updated on the 21st of February. So reality ex-EastEnders actor and now sort of reality TV guy Joe Swash and his. I don't know if they're married or if they're just living together. Stacey Solomon, who was famously on the X Factor. Nice voice, but, she didn't win. So they've been camping.
Oh, we're going to get emails now about someone saying that Stacey Solomon is very attractive.
I didn't say she wasn't.
Has a lovely hot... Oh, okay.
She's got a lovely voice. I don't know if she still does the singing, but she was a good singer on X Factor. But a bit of a character. you know?
Yeah.
So Joe Swash has told how he was left feeling freaked out after he caught what he thought was somebody staring at him overnight on his camper van holiday in Scotland with Stacey Solomon. The couple are currently enjoying a holiday in the Scottish Highlands in their swanky £70,000 motorhome.
Wow.
With 5 kids plus the 2 adults in that motorhome.
That's a big motorhome then.
Yeah, well, it doesn't look that big, but anyway, their trip hasn't been going to plan so far. After they left their home in Pickle Cottage, which must be somewhere in Essex, on Saturday, just hours into the journey, the family were forced to stop after Stacey forgot to secure the cupboards inside the motorhome. Why was it Stacey's responsibility to secure this? Do you know what I mean? There's like 5 of them in that motorhome, and one of the kids looks about 22. So, as a result, everything fell out and wreaked havoc in the back of the motorhome. And the following day wasn't much better. After they spent the night at the Loch Ness Caravan Park in Inverness, after they left for the Isle of Skye, the couple, who have 5 kids together, realised they had left Stacey's bright pink suitcase and handbag behind. But luckily, a local found her bags and managed to return them to her after contacting her on social media. And just as things couldn't get any worse, Stacey revealed that they were forced to sleep in a car park after another mishap 2 nights ago. The couple didn't realise that caravan sites in Scotland tend to shut down in the winter.
Of course they fucking do. Who's going caravanning in Scotland in the fucking winter?
Well, Joe and Stacey, evidently.
That's true.
But Joe has told how his overnight kip in a church last night was even worse than the night before, when he was convinced that he thought someone was watching him all night. After waking up in the morning, he realised that it was a creepy post that was painted to look like a king or a prince. It wasn't a person. In a clip in his Instagram story, Joe told fans, "So this is where we spent last night. Car park number 2 outside this little church. I've got to say, I think I preferred last night's car park. So if anyone is coming to the Isle of Skye and you're interested in the car parks, let us know, because we've slept in both of them." I don't think anybody's going to be putting their hand up to being interested in car parks.
No.
It's a certain group of people that use car parks in the evening. Maybe not in Scotland in the winter, because it's a bit cold maybe for that kind of thing in the winter, maybe, I don't know. But but definitely in the summer. So, definitely in the summer. Showing fans the window above the driver's seat of the motorhome, Joe continued, "Last night I slept up there, and I woke up and looked across the road, and I was sure someone was staring at me, and it really freaked me out." Showing a picture of the painted post, he said, "I got up this morning. No wonder it freaked me out. Look at the state of it." So there is a picture of it. It looks a wee bit like, like the old sort of kids shows that used to be on, like sort of Charlton and the Wheelies and King Rollo and stuff like that. It looks a wee bit like a character from one of them, to be honest. I can't quite think of which show.
God, I haven't thought about King Rollo for a very long time.
No, but why would you? True. Despite some of the chaos they faced over the last few days, fans have been quick to encourage the family on their journey. They flocked to comment on Stacey's recent post and wish them well in their travels through Scotland. One person said, "I think a TV show of Joe and Stacey on their travels is a great idea." And another added, "Sure, you and the family are going to love Scotland as much as we do. Have a great family adventure." So, so that's Joe and Stacey. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be caravanning around Scotland in February.
No. You've slept in a car park in February in a Nissan Micra with our mutual friend, didn't you?
Yes, yeah.
Which was my fault.
I'd just like to point out that they slept with means that we slept adjacent to each other in the Nissan Micra. And
I didn't mean that Nissan Micra was rocking or anything.
Well, the Nissan Micra was in fact rocking because our mutual friend had taken quite a lot of Pro Plus tablets and drank quite a lot of Red Bull in order to make the journey from Aberdeen to Norwich in his little Nissan Micra. So whilst I was able to get some sleep, unfortunately, our mutual friend wasn't. That might be maybe that's a serial tale along the lines of Shang-a-Lang for later on. Ooh. Maybe we could tell that tale. Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'll leave that up to you. You're the storyteller here, so I'll leave that up to you.
Okay.
You can come up with that at some point later on. Yeah, it's lovely to visit. And February, Scottish, I don't know if it's the best time of year, but it's still beautiful. I did see one of the articles, actually, and because I think there's been a few articles about their trip, and they did, to be fair to Stacey, she did take a photo. I don't know where they were, but it was like a photo of the beach. And it was a beautiful, clear blue sky that day. And she actually said, like, is this Scotland or the Maldives? And I'm like, well, it's fucking Scotland. But you're wearing a fucking anorak. It's definitely Scotland. But yeah, it just looked so beautiful and picturesque. And, you know, it's good. She's a big social media influencer, so if it attracts people to go and visit Scotland, then you know, I'm all for it. And you know, it might help boost a bit of tourism, so I'm all for that, to be fair. And it sounds like they're having a lovely time, apart from Joe getting scared by a King Rollo gatepost.
I always quite liked Stacey Solomon. Like, I know she used to get a bit of stick because she kind of came off a bit sort of dim or naive or whatever, but I always liked her. There's something quite charming about her, you know.
I always quite like Joe Swash as well. Like, he's just
a good egg, isn't he?
He's not a wide boy, but he just seems like a good egg. And I don't know, for some reason, I can't remember, it must have been a radio show I listened to or a podcast he was on, and it was just the way he pronounced the word bouncy ball. And I used to always just get that stuck in my head. It's a bouncy ball, and I don't know why. I always associate bouncy ball with Jimmy Swash, but he seems like a good enough lad. They're harmless. They're not hurting anyone. No. They're happy. You know, good on them. And I really hope they enjoy their time in Scotland in the car parks.
Maybe come in the summer next time.
Yeah, and don't go to dogging hotspots with your 5 kids. And shut the fucking cupboard, Stacey, next time.
Right, anyway, that's my last story this week. What's your next one?
Okay, so my next story comes from the Scottish Sun, and it is legendary. And I really like him as a pundit, Michael Stewart. As a pundit and a commentator. I know he played for Hearts and Hibs, but I really like him. He speaks his mind, which I really like, and he's not afraid to stick it to the man. But the headline here is innuendo. Michael Stewart dropped a commentary clanger worthy of a place in Scottish football heritage during last night, this was the 17th of February, so it was the 16th of February, top of the table clash in the Championship. Raith Rovers hosted league rivals Dundee United at Starks Park in the Friday night fixture, winning 2-1 to go within a point of the Tannadice side. But it wasn't just Ian Murray's team and the fans in the stand making some noise. That's because in the commentary booth, pundit Stewart dropped an innuendo for the ages. With the scores locked at 1-1 in the 77th minute, Raith won a corner from which Dundee United cleared, only for the hosts to recover it in the final third. Rovers kept up the pressure and forced another cross, but again the visitors managed to scramble it away. But David Witherspoon's lofted clearance barely reached the edge of the box, and Tony Watt had to battle to rise in a 50-50 aerial duel with left-back Liam Dick. The United striker won the header, but in doing so, caught his opponent square in the mouth with his elbow, giving away a free kick. And the Partridge-esque commentary from Stewart that followed is, as one punter put it, worthy of a place in Scottish football heritage. Michael Stewart said in the replay of the incident, "That's a sore one there. He gets Dick right in the mouth." Stewart paused, perhaps aware of his innuendo, and then continued, "He gets caught with Tony Watt's flailing arm there. That's a sore one, but thankfully Dick is up and okay." Needless to say, fans on social media who heard the whimsical double entendre were quick to pass comment on it. One joked, "Michael Stewart's enjoying himself on commentary tonight." Another said, "Absolute prime cinch." A third read, "You shouldn't laugh." Some unfortunate commentary from Michael Stewart there. The matter's on the pitch, and doesn't matter about the end of the article because we've got to the main part. But it just goes on about what the points tally is. So yeah, it's a sore one there. He gets Dick right in the mouth. That's an unfortunate bit of commentary there from Michael Stewart. But you have to laugh, and it's always funny when someone like that comes out.
Yeah, I mean, and who's going to be that upset anyway? I mean, like, most of the people that are going to be watching that most people watching the football are going to be guys. Not all. I know that, like, a lot of ladies like football too, but it's predominantly going to be guys. Probably quite a similar shared sense of humour. Of course. Have a chuckle about it like we just have.
Yeah. It's harmless fun from Michael Stewart. Fun. And it was a slip of the tongue, So anyway. Okay, so that is my last news story. But before we go on to what we're going to be talking about today, Greg, because it's going to be quite a heavy subject, I have a little game for us. Would you like to play a little game?
Love a game.
Okay, so I was in Amsterdam city centre last weekend, and I saw a lot of posters up for a new film that's coming out, and it's called The Bricklayer.
Right.
And it stars Aaron Eckhart as a bricklayer.
Right.
So I had to look up the story because I'm like, what the fuck? Why is there a film called The Bricklayer? So it turns out that Aaron Eckhart is an ex-CIA operative who has retired and he's now a bricklayer. It sounds like the worst episode of A Vida Saint Pet I've ever heard of.
Or the best, maybe.
Or the best, I don't know, yeah. Maybe Oz and Bomber get involved. Yeah. But, of course, he gets lured out of retirement and has to do like one final mission for the ex-CIA thing. And it reminded me, I instantly thought of, there was a film in January, that came out, and I haven't watched it, and it reminded me I need to watch it. A Jason Statham film called The
Beekeeper, yeah.
And I think he plays like an ex-CIA operative who, I think his neighbour gets murdered, and he avenges her death, but using bees.
I think his using bees. I think his neighbour is the victim of like online fraud and commits suicide. And that drives him to hunt down I
don't know. I just remember seeing the trailer and he smashes a jar of honey over someone's head or something.
Yeah. It drives him to go to Mumbai to find these guys.
So I thought to myself, this is obviously a trend now that they're using occupations as ex-CIA or sort of thing, the beekeeper, the bricklayer. Yeah. So I've come up with 5 stereotypical Scottish jobs. Okay. And I would like you to tell me who the lead actor or actress would be in this film. Okay. And if you want, give me a little brief synopsis. Now, I haven't thought about this apart from the last one. I have a vision for the last one, but I'm gonna. It's up to you, the first 4 and the 5th one, and then I'll tell you my idea for the 5th. Okay. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
And we're going to cover all these films on the Swally in the future. Okay. So the first one is. So I just want a synopsis and lead actor. You can flip it about if you come up with a synopsis first and then fill the actor or whatever. Okay. So the first one is The Crofter.
The Crofter. Okay, let me think. So I think it's David Heyman, and he's been dishonourably discharged from the SAS because can't hold his pints after missions. So the top brass have said that he's a decent soldier, but can't hold his booze. Always falling asleep, nights out and stuff. Always ending up his soldiers keep leaving him by the side of the road for a laugh with like a £10 note sticking in between his arse cheeks. So he decides to go to Shetland to be a crofter. But when he's in Shetland, he discovers that these Russian guys are smuggling crack in through the port in Shetland. And the police are in their pocket. The Shetland policeman's pockets are full of rubles and vodka. They're quite happy. So he decides to take matters into his own hands.
But stop off for a pint along the way.
He stopped off just for he's come off the Kestrel and he's moved on to just like low alcohol, like 0.5% beers. He's trying to make a change,
That sounds awesome. I'd love to see The Crofter. I really would. It sounds amazing. Okay. Second one on the list, The Shipbuilder.
The Shipbuilder, right, okay. I mean, I think all the synopsises are going to have, quite violent outcomes, I think, so...
Well, yeah, of course they are. It's that kind of film, isn't it?
So I think it's, The Shipbuilder, it's Matt Costello in a rare lead role.
Okay.
Matt Costello. Unusually, because normally he plays a supporting role, but it's a fairly low-budget film. They got Matt in for some credibility. So Matt's a guy who is working in a pub as a bartender, and he had been an apprentice welder on the Clyde, but he lost his job when the shipyards got closed down by Thatcher. Right? So he's got a share in a wee pub that he works in, and the Tory party tried to buy the pub to turn it into a branch of the Conservative Club, like sort of North Glasgow Conservatives Club, right? And Costello wreaks terrible vengeance on the MPs, who it turns out deserve to have vengeance related on them because these Scottish Tories are also part of a widespread paedophile ring, if there's one thing that Costello's character hates more than Conservatives, it's fucking nonsense, right? So he utilises the skills that he learned on the yards. He finds his old gaffer, a retired Billy Connolly, to get him to step in and help him out. They build sort of 18 style. They build elaborate nautical-based contraptions and traps to catch these dirty Tory nonce pervert MPs and scupper their plans to turn the pub into the Tory club.
It works doubly as well, because Billy Connolly could be a consultant on the film.
Exactly, yeah.
Used to be a shipbuilder, so yeah. That's great. I would fucking love to see the shipbuilder. I want to see that ahead of the Crofton, actually, so it's good. Okay, number 3, the trawlerman.
The trawlerman?
Yeah, trawler. So fishing trawler. Yeah. So he's
Okay, so I want somebody who looks sort of nautical. I'm going to go with Cosmo, because Cosmo looks fucking great in a fisherman's jumper. Do you not think?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So Cosmo's he plays a trawlerman who's been working out of Fraserburgh like his whole life. So this is going to call on Cosmo to utilise his accent skills to do that sort of Buchan dialect. We might have to put some subtitles on if we get an international release. So Cosmo plays a trawlerman. He's a wee bit older, and he's really upset with the EU because it'll have to be set like in the 90s.
Oh yeah, it can be set anytime.
Yeah, it'll just set in the 1990s. He's really upset with the EU because of EU rules. He's discovered that his fishing rights, Scotland's rights to fish the North Sea have been reduced, and all these Spanish fishermen are starting to come in, and French fishermen and stuff like that, because the Spanish and the French are mad for like langoustine. They are, like, that's true actually. They're fucking mad. They love shellfish, and the Mediterranean famously is too warm for shellfish. So but the other thing about Cosmo, although he's been a fisherman, he's also a bare knuckle boxer, retired, right? So like he always used to supplement his fishing money with like bare-chested car park fights in like the pub car park and stuff with like gypsies and things like that, kind of prize fights. So Cosmo discovers, first of all, it gets cunted off by one of these French fishermen, right? He almost gets knocked off his boat because he's got this old boat, and the Spanish guys have got these like top of the range, state of the art boats, right? And Cosmo almost gets taken out. Big wave comes over. The young guy's training up gets washed over the side and drowned. Cosmo's fucking raging, right? Absolutely. The young guy's played by Martin Compston, so he's been washed over the side, lost at sea, right? So Cosmo's character's absolutely raging, and then he discovers that as well as fishing the waters, the Spanish are also using it to bring in like heroin from Pakistan. So when he fight, oh no, not Pakistan, Afghanistan. Sorry.
Is it Pakistan? That well-known fucking the poppy fields of Pakistan.
I thought they did grow there. Well, okay, Afghanistan. So Cosmo discovers this, and then he gets his crew together to sort them out. So on his crew, he's got Tony Curran. He's like his first mate. He's got who else? He's got like young Ryan Gordon's on there as well. And Gordon's he's a bit of a, what do they call them? He's a bit of a greenhorn, like they say on trawlermen in the US. But Cosmo soon gets them bloodied, and they systematically take out these Spanish fishermen and break this drugs ring. But at the same time, Cosmo's wife is petitioning through our local MP to get the rights back. So there's a bit of a political kind of cut and thrust, as well as Cosmo just like knocking fuck out of Spanish guys.
Who's playing Cosmo's wife?
Who's playing Cosmo's wife? Elaine C. Smith. I think she'd be a good Cosmo's wife.
That's brilliant. I think the trawlerman's top of my list now because it's Cosmo. Like, and it sounds fucking amazing. Yeah, I think that could be top of my list. But I still really want to see the shipbuilder and the crofter
we could have flashbacks to Cosmo's like prize fighting days in the pub car parks, and the young Cosmo. Who could play the young Cosmo? Who's like a young sort of red-haired actor in his early 20s from Scotland?
Early 20s? Oh, I don't know. I was thinking, my instant thought is, of course, like Tony Curran or Kevin McKidd. But a young red-haired in his 20s? I don't know.
I don't know.
Come
back to that.
Okay. Fourth one on my list. It's not really a profession, but it kind of is in Scotland. The Jakey.
Okay.
Now, let's be careful not to rip off Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yeah, be careful here. Let's see. So the JK is, so it's Rory McCann, right? Plays the JK. So Rory is an ex sort of MI6 assassin, right? And he's been so haunted by the things that he's had to do on behalf of both her and His Majesty's government that he's had to walk away from it, and he just can't help. He's got a bit of a Leaving Las Vegas Nick Cage vibe about him. He just wants to drink himself to death, right? He's had enough. So he's prominent on the streets of Glasgow because he's like fucking 6'8" or something, lurching about, drinking a bottle of Blue Nun and being belligerent and everything. But then he meets this young asylum seeker woman who takes pity on him. She finds him at his lowest ebb, right? He's fucking fallen asleep in her government house that she's had, which is in this really shitty part of Glasgow. She finds him flat on his back in the garden, right? He's pissed and shat himself. He's just in a terrible state, right? So her and her young teenage son managed to drag him in, get him in the bath, clean him up, sober him up. And she very, very kindly invites him to stay until he sorts himself out. So Big Rory starts to realise that he needs to make some changes. In the meantime, the young teenage son's getting a lot of grief off the local young team, which is being coordinated by like a grown man played by Robert Carlyle. So while they seem like daft wee Neds, he's actually got this like sex trafficking and drug ring going on that Carlyle's using these young guys to sort of facilitate all this. And then Big Rory...
He's like the modern day Scottish Fagin.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like abusing these young guys. They not like sexually abusing them, but just like kind of knocking them about and bullying them and stuff. So then Big Rory gets involved and he fucking starts taking cunts out with like zero prejudice.
That sounds amazing. Oh, fuck. These all sound brilliant. I mean... If anyone rips these off, then we've, I think, because it's a podcast and it's out there in the ether, then we've got copyright claim on this. Well, you've got copyright claim on this. Okay, the last one, the dad that sells Avon.
Right, so I think the dad's played by down on his luck Jerry Butler, who's had a big job in America that's all come crashing down. He's had to come back to like Dunfermline with his tail between his legs. And the only gig he can get is selling Avon door to door. But then it turns out that there's another guy that Jerry remembers from school that he never got on with, bit of a school bully, that's played by Ian Glenn, right? And he's got all the Avon neighbourhoods like in his back pocket. So Jerry doesn't realise this, so when he goes chapping on doors, people are like scared to talk to him and everything, and can't understand what's going on. And then a couple of Ian Glenn's heavies get hold of him and tell him that this is fucking Big Ian's patch, right? You only get one warning. And then, we just take it from there. But it also turns out that Jerry is, although he's had a job in America, he's also quite a hard cunt as well. So he's not really one to be intimidated. But he takes his warning and tries a different neighbourhood. But it turns out that's one of Big Ian's as well. So these guys come back to, we warned you. Jerry knocks absolute fuck out of them. And then he slowly starts taking up the Avon territory. But in a fair way, you know. People don't feel that they have to buy Avon from Jerry. You know, he gives them the choice. But with Big Ian, it's like protection money. You've got to buy your midgie sprays and your sustainable deodorants and stuff off Big Ian, and you have to buy a certain amount every week. It doesn't matter if your bathroom cupboard's full of Avon gear. You've got to keep buying, or Ian's guys will come and put your windies in.
Yeah, I would love to see that as well. I would love to see all 5 of those. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I only had one idea, and it was for number 5, the dad that sells Avon. And it was a younger Brian Pettifer,
right,
in Cumbernauld. And he's a single father. He's lost his job, so he has to resort to selling Avon door to door, but he can't shift any Avon.
Right,
he's not doing well, and he comes home one night and his kids are crying and they're like, "Why? What's wrong?" And he's like, "They're getting bullied at school because all the other kids are saying your dad sells Avon." And they're all upset, and he's just down on his luck. And then he goes into the bookies one day to put a line on, and his pen doesn't work, and he just fucking loses it. And it's like Falling Down with Michael Douglas with Brian Pettifer in Cumbernauld. And he just fucking smashes fuck out the bookies. He goes into the bakers. They've no rolls, so he just goes fucking mental in the bakers, smashes fuck out of it. And I think it ends with it's just carnage throughout Cumbernauld with Brian Pettifer shouting about, nobody wants my fucking Avon, you're all fucking cunts. And it ends, I think, with a low speed car chase in a golf cart up the M8.
That might
That's
be
my
like
idea for
Brian might end with Pettifer on the roof of Cumbernauld Town Centre. You know? Like armed police all around him, people trying to talk him down, and he goes into his jacket pocket and the police think he's going for a gun and they shoot him, and then it turns out it was just a wee bottle of Avon midget spray.
Yeah, because it was summer.
Yeah,
in Cumbernauld.
it's summer.
It's just trying to get rid of the midges.
Midges are bastards.
Oh, fantastic. Well, those are 5 films I would be desperate to see, and Hollywood execs or Scottish Film Foundation, if you're interested in getting some funding there, then we'll be happy to be consultants, and we'll write the script.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
We've got the outline there, so yeah, we'll happily write the script for those.
I'm pretty confident that most of the actors we mentioned are probably available for...
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I'm pretty certain. I don't know, Jerry Butler you might have a bit of trouble with,
maybe.
but
I think he might like a wee Scottish project, you know? It's been a while since he did one.
Yeah, I think so. Right. Okay, well, before we go on to what we're going to be talking about today, let's have a little word from our sponsors. And our sponsor is, of course, Doric Skateboards, a skateboard brand created by Gary Kemp, whose main focus is to explore the people and the culture of Aberdeen and the northeast of Scotland, and to create designs that reflect life in that area. Doric Skateboards screen print their own decks in their studio by Gary's fair hand, and they have produced some amazing designs over the years, including an Annie Lennox-inspired board, a Robert the Bruce deck, and a Plenty of Pop deck inspired by the old Bonaccord trucks that used to drive around Aberdeen delivering fizzy drinks. Doric Skateboards also replicate these amazing designs onto clothing on 100% organic cotton tees, hoodies, sweatshirts, and you can also fill your boots on stickers, pin badges, beanies, and caps. Gary regularly collaborates with local artists to ensure that he brings the latest designs to the market, but always with a Doric twist, including the Ballater Toy Shop design, inspired by Scotland a What, which we actually need to cover quite soon, Greg. So check out Doric Skateboards for yourself on doricskateboards.com, and you can follow them on Instagram at Doric Skateboards to see all the amazing designs on offer. And we are delighted to be able to offer you 15% off as listeners to this podcast. All you need to do is head to doricskateboards.com, have a look at all the amazing decks, stickers, badges, hoodies and tees on offer, and enter the promo code SWALLY. That's SWALLY, same as the name of this podcast, and get your 15% off. That's doricskateboards.com, link in the description of this episode.
Okay, Nikki, so it was your choice to pick this week's content, I guess. So what are we talking about today?
Thank you, Greg. So first of all, and we never normally do this on the Swally, but as you will have seen from the title of this episode, we are covering the TV adaptation of Mayflies from 2022. Now, the reason we never normally say this is because most of the stuff we cover is from the 80s, 90s, or 2000s, and if you haven't seen it by now, that's not our problem, it's your problem. Mm-hmm. But as this is only 15 months old, I want to say if you haven't seen Mayflies, or if you haven't read the book that it's based on, we will be spoiling the shit out of this. So just a warning. I also want to give a trigger warning on this episode. And what we're about to discuss is very heavy on the subject of cancer and about someone who's suffering from the disease who chooses to die on their own terms. So if you've been affected by either of those topics and feel uncomfortable listening to this, then we won't be offended if you choose to switch off now. I also want to say that Greg and I have both lost parents to cancer in recent years, and we're not going to be going in depth on that, but we may touch upon our experiences. So I just wanted to warn any listeners that might be triggered by discussions of those topics that you've had a warning. Okay, right, let's get on with this. So today we're covering the 2022 BBC adaptation of the 2020 Andrew O'Hagan novel Mayflies. Starring Martin Compston, Tony Curran and Ashley Jensen, Mayflies follows lifelong friends Jimmy and Tully as they grapple with the news that Tully has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. This is made all the more difficult for Jimmy when Tully asks him to help him to travel to Switzerland to die on his own terms. Shown during the Christmas period of 2022 on BBC One, the show was met with much critical acclaim and won a Scottish BAFTA. So I read the book early 2022, I think. I was aware of it in 2020, but it was only a year after my mum had passed, and I kind of didn't feel I was ready to read about the subject matter. But I'd been eagerly anticipating. I think it was the show was announced. And it was announced that Curran and Compston were starring in it. And I was like, right, I have to read the book, and because I have to see this show. I decided to wait for the right time so that we could cover it on the Swally, because obviously, it's only been 2 years since your dad passed as well. So I didn't want to do it in the right time. So this was my first time watching the show. And you mentioned on the last episode you hadn't read the book or you hadn't seen the show, but I believe you've done both now, Greg. So what did you think of Mayflies?
So, I know we're not going to go into a massive amount of detail in the book because we're talking about the TV show.
Yeah.
But I read the book. I've been away on my travels the last couple of weeks. Obviously, people who long-term listeners will know that you and I were meeting up in Brussels a couple of weeks ago. And when I left you in Brussels, I went off to Milan. So I had the book in my Kindle and I read it over those kind of few days when I was on the road. I think, with the TV show, I'm glad I read the book first. In one way, not so much in others, but the TV show, I think, it's kind of, and the book actually, they're kind of profoundly Scottish, I think, in the Tony Curran's character Tully, his attitude to what's happened to him and what he's going through. I think it's profoundly Scottish because he sort of, there are moments when it overtakes him, but for the most part, his character kind of metaphorically sticks two fingers up at it. He refuses to let it change his life too much until it gets particularly bad, and it's sort of unavoidable. But even not to get ahead, but even toward the end, he's still, by hook or crook, determined to be the Tully that everybody loves. And, whether that's Anna or Noodles, whatever. If I'm being honest, the thing that threw me a wee bit watching the show is, and Martin Compston is good as Noodles, but Martin Compston is 12 years younger than Tony Curran. And they're
14, I think.
14 years younger, and they're playing like peers, like old friends who are supposed to be close in age. Although I think in the story, Tully is maybe a year or so older than Noodles because he's off to work when Noodles is still at school.
Yeah. So,
and the other thing that kind of threw me off a bit is that Ryan Gordon looks quite a lot taller than Martin Compston. Ryan Gordon plays the young Noodles in the flashback scenes to when they were young. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the book, I think, a bit more than the TV show, but I still really enjoyed the TV show. I think it's the cast are brilliant. If I'm being honest, it didn't, some parts of Tully's struggle made me think a little bit about my dad's experiences when he contracted cancer and, as it developed and what he went through to some extent. But, for the most part, even completely removing my own experiences away from the story, it's still incredibly powerful. You know what I mean? I don't think that you even necessarily have to have experience of something like this to be profoundly moved by it, I
would agree with you on that. I think, so obviously the book is very different from the TV series in that the book is split into two parts. So the first part is set in 1986.
Yeah.
And it's all about this group of friends going down to Manchester to this festival. And it does focus on Noodles and Tully in terms of, you kind of know they're the two good mates, but there are the other three guys there as well. Mm-hmm. And, the first part is great. And then first part ends. And then part two is 30 years later when Tully calls Noodles to say that he has cancer. And he's come up. And I think it's very cleverly done, the way that the book is written. They obviously couldn't do that in the TV show. They couldn't have had part one being the first part of the book.
Yeah.
Just the young kids. And then the second part being that. Mm-hmm. I think they did it very cleverly in terms of the way they weave it in. And you could say they're kind of knocking people on the head because you see Martin Compston, then it goes, into the younger version. But I think it's quite well done, the way they do that aspect. So you can relate, like, okay, so that's Noodles. Okay, that's Tully.
Yeah.
That's Hog. Okay, get that. You can kind of see the way that they've done it very cleverly, I think. And it works. I would agree with you. Despite the fact that there's a 14-year age gap between Curran and Compston, it never actually took me out of it. Like, I did read some online reviews, people saying, like, well, Tony Curran looks like his dad. But it didn't matter to me. I'm watching two fucking great Scottish actors. Like, well, three, sorry, if I include Ashley Jensen.
Yeah.
Which, and we'll come on to all their performances later. But it didn't take me out of it at all. I genuinely believed that they are best friends. And it's a testament to their acting ability.
Sure.
That they're so good. I agree with you as well that it was difficult not to think about my mum watching this. But as you say, Tully's, his reasoning is that he doesn't want Anna, Ashley Jensen's character, his wife, to see him kind of wither and die. And, some of the quotes, he said, "Don't let me die like a prick."
Yeah.
When he's discussing chemo, it'll turn me into someone I'm not. And then the beautiful line that he says to Martin, to Noodles later on, I want her to remember me whole.
Yeah.
I can't bear it. Well, I'm dying and it's going to be ugly. Switzerland's all I've got. But you gave me your word.
And I'm doing it. But you have to do right by Anna. Tell her.
As soon as I get my date, look, she might not want it, but in the end, it's my decision. I don't have to ask her permission.
It's not about permission, Tully. It's about decency.
But if she loves me, she'll come around.
And what if she doesn't? Like, if you do this without her blessing, she can make things difficult. Legally, when we get back.
Not for me, I'm not coming back.
Just think about how she'll feel. How I'll feel.
I won't be here, so I won't know.
Don't be a dick.
I'm doing this for her too. I want her to remember me whole. Do you not understand that?
And, the whole point of that is, like, I saw my mum in some terrible states towards the end, but I don't remember her like that.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
Yeah.
I remember her the way she was before the illness. So it's strange, but I think, people will think like that when they're in that state, like, I don't want you to remember me like this. But so I can totally understand Tully's viewpoint.
Yeah.
And as you say, he's so determined of he wants to end it on his own terms. And that's the character of Tully. And that's what Noodles says at one point, that it's Tully.
Yeah.
He's always been like this. He wants to go out his own way. And I think it's a great job in terms of building the character of Tully in that way.
Yeah, I think, and it's Curran, right? I mean, I think Curran, he's probably like the perfect age to play Tully, because, this is a guy whose youth has been through the 1980s. So he's grown up in a kind of working class environment. He's quite politically driven as a young guy. And as an adult, I mean, he's got that brilliant line where he says, "I'd rather die than go private." You know what I mean? And there's little callbacks to, like, the miners' strike, probably more so in the book than in the TV show. But I think Curran, he probably grew up at the same time as all those things were going on, so he can identify with the kind of life experience of the character of Tully, and I think he's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I know Curran's in this thing that's on Sky called George and Mary, like some historical thing. He's playing opposite Julianne Moore. I've seen it advertised a lot over the last few days on the telly. But, it's great to see him, because often he's in these sort of period things. Outlaw King, we spoke about him in, this thing that I just mentioned there. It's good to see him in a really contemporary role. You know what I mean? With, playing a character that I think he obviously identifies with, like, as an actor. He's probably, this is pure conjecture on my part, having never met Tony Curran, but the one or two actors that I do know of, or know a little bit, quite bohemian sensibilities, quite politically motivated in one way or another, especially Scottish actors, And, I think for him, this sort of role for him is kind of bread and butter, and then adds in the emotional heft of what his character is going through, and facing with just sort of formidable gallows humour all the way to the very, very end. He like I said before, he kind of this refusing to let it change him into something that he's not prepared to be, or somebody that he's not prepared to be. Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant in it. I really hope this leads to more kind of leading man roles for Curran. We see like a lot more of him because he's a formidable actor.
I mean, this is his 5th appearance on the Culture Swally. Yeah. So he played the travel agent in Shallow Grave. He was obviously in Red Road with Martin Compston, so it's a bit of a reunion. He was fantastic in Caliber.
Of course, we
covered very early on, and then of course Outlaw King and now Mayflies. Did you ever watch the US show Your Honor with Bryan Cranston?
No, I never saw that.
Tony Curran plays like the big baddie in that, and I think the premise is that Bryan Cranston's son accidentally kills Tony Curran's son, but Tony Curran plays like this big gangster, and it's I would recommend. I haven't watched the second season of it because there is a second season, but the first season is fantastic, so I would recommend that. Your Honor, Tony Curran is just absolutely fucking brilliant.
He's a great actor.
He's a great actor, and this is just this role is just fantastic for him.
I mean, the one thing that his performance did make me think about as far as my father goes is my dad for years and years and years, like long before he had cancer. If we saw something on the TV of some poor person just like in a wheelchair and maybe somebody with motor neuron disease, something like that, like some like incurable debilitating illness, he would say, "Oh, if I ever get like that, just push me off something high," right? To say that all the time. But then when he was first diagnosed with cancer, I think once he got over the initial sort of shock of it, he was reasonably pragmatic in the sense that, well, I'm going to do all the right things, and while it might mean that I don't live to be 100, I'm still determined to go as long as I can. And then when he found out that his condition was terminal, and he didn't, and what he had taken to be years and years in reality became months. I mean, he sort of, he did eventually kind of sort of get there, but initially he was completely crushed. You know what I mean? Like that kind of the bravado and the optimism initially went completely out of him. But then he, when he'd sort of processed it and spoken to us all and everything else, he kind of rallied a little bit. He rallied a lot, and he was sort of determined to be sort of set himself, well, I'll get to Christmas, then I'll get to such and such and such and such, and he did his best, but eventually, as unfortunately as happens to everybody with the type of cancer he's got, eventually it took him, So, I think my dad would have liked the sort of attitude of Tully, I think, in that this, very gallows humour. I made a joke with my dad after we found out that he was terminal, and he kind of laughed, but I felt a bit bad about it because, it was a bit out of nervousness. But when I got into his house, I had to do some self-isolation. No, I didn't actually for that part, but I got in his house that because he had been got in the hospital quite abruptly, there was a pot of tea on the counter that had been there for maybe a couple of weeks. So it was minging, right? So when I went to see him in the hospital, I said, we had the news by this point and everything else, so we knew that, what the situation was. And I said, there's a pot of tea, and there was a pot of tea on the counter that had been there for ages that I had to throw away and clean the kettle out. I said, I don't know now if I should have preserved it because it's maybe the last cup of tea that you'll make in the house. And then I kind of thought, because normally that's sort of thing my dad and I would joke about. And we kind of looked at each other for a second. Yeah. We kind of looked at each other for a second, and then he did laugh. You know what I mean? And I felt initially quite relieved, but I felt like absolute dog shit later on when I was thinking about it. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't that long after he had got the news, and I'm trying to sort of cheer him up and make daft jokes and things, and but I guess it's you don't really know how it's difficult to know how to act around people who are dealing with that sort of diagnosis in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I had a different situation in terms of, my mum got diagnosed and I took her to every doctor's appointment and every chemo session and everything, and she was adamant she did not want to know. She would say to the doctor, I don't want to know.
Right.
I don't want to know, like, how long or what it is. Like, she had no idea. So therefore, I had no idea because couldn't ask. And it was just one day, I think I went into the hospital to pick up a prescription, and I was able to see the doctor. And I said to him, look, just can you tell me, like, how long has she got? And he said, I'll be honest, I'm amazed she's still alive. She's fighting it, but, he's like maybe 6 months. Yeah. And I had to deal with knowing that, but not being able to tell her. Yeah. Because she didn't want to know. Yeah. And that's horrible, having that feeling of knowing that, within 6 months I'm gonna lose her. But she has no idea. Because she didn't want to know and she didn't want to die. But
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand that. I completely understand it, as I'm sure you do. Because I think if you're, in Tully's case, he's told that he's got, without chemo, he's got a certain amount of months. It's horrible knowledge to have. If that's, do you know what I mean? I completely understand your mum not wanting to know, because what a burden that knowledge is. Because you immediately just think, well, I imagine if I try and put myself into that type of situation, I think my immediate thought would be, right, I've only got this time, and there's all these things that I always wanted to do that I never did, that I won't be able to do now. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think, for your mum, her not wanting to know, then maybe she, if she was well enough, maybe there were some things that she was able to do that she'd always wanted to. You know what I mean? Like maybe smaller things that weren't too physically demanding or whatever, or call for her to go anywhere. Things that she might have always wanted to try and stuff. So I think it's quite a positive attitude to take.
So I think Tully, they don't fuck around in this. Like, it's literally the 5-minute mark. Bang. Mm-hmm. You find out Tully's got cancer. He's got 4 months to live. Yeah. And that's it.
Alan and I were on holiday a few months ago in Cuba. Well, I love Cuba. I was hiccuping a hell of a lot. Indigestion. It was the drink. I'd been caning it. So I tell Anna when I get home, I'm going to screw the nut. That well-worn refrain. But I didn't tell her about the pain. And if I'm completely fucking honest, I've been in pain for months. So I get home, go to the doctor's. She sends me for a scan. And the rest, as they say, is cancer.
Where?
Esophagus, liver, stomach, and lymph nodes, whatever the fuck they are. I've got 4 months, and that's the short of it.
And it's a beautiful scene with him and Noodles when they're by the caravan, and he tells him, and Noodles instantly is like, right, we'll go private, we'll fight this, and it's almost like Tully has just accepted it, and he's like, no, his first line, I'm fucked, Noodles. Yeah. And it's okay, I'm going to die. But he seems positive, and he's, you're going to be my campaign manager. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful scene when they're sat in the pub, and he's like, right, make a list. You're always good at making lists. And I love that they flash back to that later on in episode 2, I think, when they're talking about going to Manchester. Or no, it's later in episode 1, actually, when they're talking about going to Manchester, and they're sat in the flat, and he's like, Noodles, make a list. And it's a lovely little flashback that he's always been making lists. Yeah. And I absolutely adore that scene when they're in the pub, and they're like, okay, first of all, Anna. What do we do about Anna? Yeah. And it's like, well, marry her. Yeah. And it's such a touching, and it's a testament to those two actors that it just feels like you're just sitting in the pub with your mates, and they're discussing, a list of what is this guy going to do before he dies. Yeah. But it just seems like so much banter and just so well done. And it really is just a testament. And Tony Curran comes out with amazing lines, when he eventually says to him, so they cover Anna, and when he says about chemo, and he's like, nope, no way. Cross that off the fucking list. Yeah. Cross that off. And he's like, put this down, Switzerland. And when Noodle's like, oh, you want to go to Switzerland on holiday? And it's a fucking amazing line. He's like, no, the last place I want to go on holiday is the land of fence sitting and fucking cuckoo clocks. It's just fucking brilliant. And of course he's like, no, I want the Hitler chow down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it comes up a lot, that term, in the book and in the show, because every time they kind of catch up on the phone, Tully's always looking for an update on the Hitler chow down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I think, I think what this may have benefited from was it being a 3-parter instead of a 2-parter, because the thing that the book does really well is really emphasise how deeply the friendship is between Tully and Noodles, because there's all this stuff. There's all this stuff about Noodles divorcing his mum and dad, and him spending a lot of time in Tully's house with his mum and his sister. They making soup together. They do have the scene where they make the soup together with the stolen vegetables, but there's a lot, in the part that Tully plays in getting Noodles out of Kilwinning and off to university, because Noodles now is a highly regarded and respected and successful writer, and in the book he holds a lot of the reason of his success was because Tully kind of gave him the kick in the arse that he needed to go and make the most of his natural ability and talent. And then there's also the flip side of it, with Noodles encouraging Tully to get out of the factory that he's working in and go to night school and do his hires. And because Tully, when we meet him as an adult, is a school teacher, and an intellectual in a different way to Noodles' intellectualism. Noodles is all sort of Russian opera and like a lot of like incredibly famous and deep writers and philosophers and thinkers, whereas Tully's got a little bit of that intellectualism, but he doesn't wear it on his sleeve in the way that Noodles' character is he's kind of poked fun at by some of the other characters in the story. Although I don't think he does overtly wear his intellectualism on his sleeve per se in either the book or the show, maybe in some moments. But Tully's intellectualism, again, it's more this sort of politically charged, principled, the fact that he is a school teacher, shape it in the community that he grew up in, shaping young lives. You know what I mean? And trying to put kids on the right path and stuff. It's sort of subtle, but it's profound.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. I think I agree, to go back to the start of that point, that maybe a 3-parter might have been better to go into like a little bit more depth.
Yeah.
Of the story,
just to really build, just to really emphasise that friendship. Because I think if I had never read the book and I had just watched this, Tully asking Noodles to help him die with dignity, it might have thrown me a little bit, because I understood the depth of the relationship between these two characters from reading the book. It feels much more natural that Noodles would be the guy that Tully would go to. Out of all that group of friends, they're the two that have stayed in touch over the years, like consistently. Like sort of Tibbs is on the kind of periphery, and then there's other ones like Hogg who have just sort of dropped out of the friendship circle. You know what I mean? Who kind of come back in for the wedding, but they're the two that have been firm friends all these years. So it makes you understand, because it's quite imagine being asked to do that. We were saying at the beginning of the show, beginning of the episode rather, how, do anything for each other as best friends, which we would. Yeah. But either of us doing that for the other. You know what I mean? I mean, it would be it'd be a devastating thing to do. I would, be devastating to do. Like from the beginning of the process to the very end of it.
I agree. But yeah, if that's what you really wanted, then same way, if that's what I really wanted, then I think we'd be there for each other.
Course.
And I think that's, beautiful thing that we understand this. But you're right. I think they maybe don't go into it enough. There's a couple of mentions of it, in terms of, there is one scene where Noodles does say, about Tully, like, he did so much for me, so I have to, and there is a little bit of, you see him at the family home, of course, with his mum and Woodbine, and you get the impression that he basically just stays there most of the time because he hates his parents and is divorcing them. But it doesn't go into enough in depth of, things. And of course, Tully buying him the ticket, for example, for the the Manchester thing. Like it's I feel they could have gone a bit more in depth into that, so you really appreciate the relationship, because in the book it is so determined that they are, such close friends, and they've done so much for each other. So yeah, I think you're right. It could have. I mean, I liked the fact it was 2 episodes because it was only 2 hours long, so it's ideal for the Swally. But I agree, it could have. Like it didn't warrant like a 6-part series.
No,
but maybe a 3-part would have been good. Like just to go a little bit more, because we didn't see enough, of the other characters. And it's very just touched upon in terms of like Limbo dying.
Yeah, like
in the book, it's a lot more in depth in terms of Limbo's death and stuff. But it's just kind of, it's like 3/4 of the way through episode 2 that you kind of realise that Limbo's died. It's quite... I
mean, to be devil's advocate, the other thing is, and maybe this was in the minds of the producers, is emotionally, it's a very, very, very... no, I don't want to say difficult watch, but I'm sort of thinking there, you and I were talking about the Iron Claw the other day, and how and it's about a family of wrestlers in the 70s and 80s that were just the brothers just like beleaguered by tragedy, but the film leaves one of the brothers out and doesn't tell the story of one of the brothers. And when we're looking it up, the producer and director said, I think it'd just be too much tragedy for an audience to really withstand, because the stories of the brothers that are told in the film are incredibly distressing and sad and everything. And I wonder if maybe more episodes of this story might have been maybe that might have been in their minds. Well, it's a very, very profoundly emotional story, and would 3 hours of Tully's and to a lesser extent Noodle's struggle and what he's going through and stuff, would it be too much for it? Because the thing is, like the BBC, for some fucking God knows why, put this on as part of their Christmas scheduling. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not exactly the fucking open all hours Christmas special. You know what I mean? It's
it's a fucking deep cut open all hours Christmas special. I think it's a tough sell because it's a tough subject matter. How do you describe this book? And I've had this, like last night I was speaking to a friend and I said I'm recording a podcast tomorrow, and she's like, oh, what's it about? I said, it's about a guy who has terminal cancer and asks his friend to take him to Switzerland to end his own life. Like, oh, that sounds really cheery. Like, yeah.
That sounds got a laugh.
It's a really tough subject matter, but at the heart of this and the heart of the book, and I think that's one thing they do get across in the TV adaptation, but maybe not enough. Like maybe they do actually. It's a tale of friendship and why friendship is so important.
100%.
But more for the fact, male friendship. And this is something you don't see a lot depicted in TV and films. Yeah. In terms of, male friendship is all about, let's go out and fucking get pissed and shag birds and do drugs and go to the football and do this. Yeah. You don't see a lot of fucking like heterosexual males who have had such a friendship and a bond telling each other that they love each other. Yeah. And I'm lucky I'm in a position I tell you that I love you because I do. Yeah. And you tell me that as well. And, we're fine with that because I do. I love you. Yeah. And you don't see that depicted on TV and on screen enough, I think. And that's why this is such an important show and such an important story, that it shows that the bond of male friendship with someone you've known for so many years. And as I started the show, I'd do anything for you, and I know you would do anything for me. It doesn't get depicted enough, I think, nowadays.
You're right.
Because it's gay, to be like that.
Oh, I don't know.
You know what I mean, though? But it is. Like, you know what I mean? But that's the kind of... I think we are making inroads into that of it is acceptable now, and there is a lot about male mental health and talking to each other and stuff. And I think it's so good to have this from a male perspective, I think.
I think for our generation and the male generations that preceded us. There's definitely like a school of thought that it is, like you just said, it's a bit gay or whatever. I think for like younger people now, for whatever reason, it's perhaps a bit more, like I don't know, but if I think about, our generation, and something I discovered the other day, that I always thought you and I were part of the same generation label, but we're not. According to my daughter who Googled it, I'm Generation X, you're Generation Z. Yeah. But you're only Generation Z by a ball hair.
Yeah. On the cusp.
Yeah.
I think I'm more Generation X, to be honest.
I think emotionally, 100%. Yeah. But it's all to do with the sort of technology you grow up with and everything else. Certainly. If I think about the friends that I've had over the years that I've stayed in touch with from school and later on, because you and I have been friends since we were in our early 20s. Well, you in your late teens, me in my early 20s, and we hit it off straight away, and we've been close friends ever since. I've got like a friend from school called Brendan that I've known since I was 14. I don't see him very often. In fact, I don't think I've seen him since I moved to the Middle East. So it's probably been like 9 years since I saw him. That said, we do stay in touch on WhatsApp, and I would consider him to be among my very close friends as well. And I always did when we used to spend a lot of time together, So, I think you're right. Men's mental health especially has really come to the forefront over the last few years. And I think, unfortunately, the reason for that is because the rates in male suicide have increased significantly. And, obviously we scour the news every week for sort of Swally-centric stories that we can have a laugh about on the podcast. But in the midst of going through the news, you come across incredibly sad stories as well. And a lot of them, there's been a lot over the years from doing the podcast of young guys in their 20s taking their own lives, for a multitude of different reasons. And I don't remember that when I was younger, when I was a kid at high school and stuff. I mean, I don't know anybody from my generation, from my sort of peer group. I've certainly not heard of anybody from my school peer group who have committed suicide. You know what I mean? Girls or guys, but as we're talking about guys. But it seems to be something that it happens quite frequently, especially in the UK and probably elsewhere in the world. But, the UK is obviously the stories that we hear about because it's the Scottish press that we analyse every week.
I can't remember the exact stat, the exact age, but is it not that suicide is the biggest killer of males under the age of 35 in the UK?
I believe you're right. It's something very close to that, yeah. So, it's different. I mean, I'm raising two teenagers at the moment. They're girls. I don't think I would like to be a teenager in 2023. I don't think I'd like to be young now. I guess everybody says it. I'm glad that I was young when I was young. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm thankful for that. That I was young.
Can you imagine if fucking camera phones and Snapchat and Instagram were around when we were going out in our late teens, early 20s? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
We'd be cancelled, definitely.
You'd have definitely spent a night in the fucking Nick in Aberdeen anyway. Little John's manager. Evidence on his phone.
So, Martin Compston, who plays Noodles, his 6th appearance on the Culture Swally. He's been in Sweet 16, Red Road, The Wee Man, Filth, Barney Thompson, and now Mayflies. Yeah. Now, I watched this twice this week. I watched it to watch it, and then I watched it to make notes. First time I watched it, I thought, spoiler alert later on, I was blown away by Tony Curran's performance, and Ashley Jensen, who we'll get onto shortly. Yeah. Martin Compston I thought was great. However, I did think in a way, he's just playing Martin Compston. If that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just Martin Compston. However, on the second watch, I paid very close attention to his performance, and I take back what I just said. He's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
There's tiny little nuances and things he does that I didn't appreciate on the first watch, and watching it back, just some of the facial expressions he does. There's one bit. It's 2 bits, sorry. Towards the end, the second episode, when he gets the pen, the look he gives to Anna is just phenomenal. And towards the very end, when Tully is about to sign the papers that he is accepting that he's about to end his life. And that's one of the things, like, I almost wished I hadn't read the book, like, before watching it, because he pauses and you're thinking, fuck, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And Noodles, or Martin Compston, just as the pen is about to hit the paper, he puts his hand out and it's almost as if it's about to say, Tully, just don't. And then as he just puts it out, Tully puts the pen on the paper and starts signing. And he styles it out by taking his hand back, taking off his glasses and just pinching the bridge of his nose.
Yeah.
And you're like, that is such a fucking subtle thing that I did not really notice the first time of watching this. But oh my God, if that was a director note or if that was you, Compston, that did that, like, it's, he's fucking brilliant in this. Like, and I take back what I said. Like, honestly, the first watch, I was like, he's just being Martin Compston, but he's not. He's so good. I
mean, I wonder with him, you know, because famously he's from Greenock, Martin Compston, so he's from that sort of part of the world. You know, and here, you know, we know that his story, he comes from fairly humble beginnings. You know, kind of picked by Ken Loach, no acting experience for Sweet 16, and you know, he's gone on to a fantastically successful career, some great performances under his belt. But you know, I wonder if, although he, you know, as we said earlier on, he's a lot younger than the character he's portraying is supposed to be in this, I think he maybe knows that world. You know, he's sort of at home, you know, although he's not from Kilwinning, but he's kind of at home in Kilwinning. It's a, you know, it's a town, it's a neighborhood that he recognizes, you know. And I wonder if where he comes from is what drives this performance, you know, because you would think, well, how would this actor understand what it was like to grow up in the early 1980s? Do you know what I mean? In the mid 1980s, how would he understand that? You know, how would he be expected to be able to play an older version of a character like that? But because he understands the area, he understands Scotland, and you know, like it's a very, you know, we'll get onto it later when we're doing the categories, but when I was trying to come up with archetypal Scottish moment, there are tons of both overt and subtle, profoundly Scottish moments in this, you know. And he, you know, I think it's his understanding of what it means to come from the west of Scotland, I think, that helps him embody this character, you know. And I'm sure I would be very surprised if Martin Compston hasn't got, because I know I follow him on Twitter, or X rather. He's back in Greenock a lot, you know, just judging by his Twitter. So I'm sure he's got a number of close friends who he remains close friends with, who maybe haven't gone on to do the sort of things that he went on to do, but he stays in touch, and he goes to the pub with them, and they hang out. And I think I feel like he understands what it is to be part of a close-knit group of friends. You know, in the way that we do with our mutual friend. You know, it's not a massive group. There's a couple of kind of honorary temporary members that we allow in now and again. We're back in Aberdeen or whatever, that we allow in for a little while. But really, it's you, me, and our other friend who are, you know, and I wonder sometimes if some of the guys that we allow in occasionally, I wonder what they think of that, you know, what they think of us. Not that it bothers me, but I wonder if they think, you know, those three are fucking weird, that, you know, you can't really get properly in there, you know, despite the fact that they've known us almost for as long as they've known each other, you know? Yeah.
You can't penetrate the core three. I don't. I think one of the other factors of Tully's decision is that he doesn't want to die, and Fiona, his sister, says that. Like, he doesn't want to die like his dad did.
Yeah.
Like, he had to watch his dad, played brilliantly by Stephen McCall.
Yeah.
Swally favourite. You know, he had to watch his dad die.
Yeah.
And
in a really undignified way on the floor of the kitchen or whatever, the floor of the living room, sort of fighting for breath.
And as when they're in the pool at the YMCA, when he's telling Noodles that his dad's had a heart attack, and is he okay? And he's like, yeah, he's come through, but it's just the start, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he knows that his dad's going to die eventually. He speaks about his mum having to wipe his dad's chin. But yeah, his dad dies in front of him. And that must have had an impact on him, thinking, I don't want to see Anna. I don't want Anna to see me like that.
Well, that's the thing with the relationship. I mean, I will just say quickly before I make my point. McCall has a handful of lines in this. A lot of the part calls for him to be looking on, you know. But again, he's such a fucking fantastic actor. You know what I mean? Like, he's just brilliant, and he's you know, despite the fact he doesn't have a great deal to say in it, he's brilliant as Tully's dad. But you know, really you see, because, you know, the character of Tully, and it's explained a bit more in the book, but he's not, I think he sort of yearns for a closeness with his dad that he had when he was a wee boy, that is kind of, it's sort of died a little bit as he becomes a teenager and gets closer to adulthood. And there's a lot of bravado from Tully about his relationship with his dad. But we understand through the things he says, things he does, things we see, that he actually misses the closeness with his dad. And I think, you know, there's a kind of not pitying, but, you know, he feels for his dad's struggle, because his dad's from another generation, a generation that would maybe spend their entire working life in the same industry, an industry that a community has been built around, which at the time of the kind of younger moments in the show, like in the 80s, these are communities that are being decimated by what the British government at the time was doing to British industry, and characters like Woodbine are the kind of the fallout, you know, of what has happened there. And you know, so there's that part of it, and then also, as you touched on, having to be with his father as he passes away abruptly at home on the floor, and being helpless and not being able to have any kind of consolidation with his dad. You know, he never had the chance to sit down with his dad man to man, like adult to adult, and, you know, kind of talk things through and understand each other and get that relationship back that they had when Tully was a wee boy. I feel a big part of that is what's driving Tully's decision to end his own life, you know, and he's 100%. He's haunted by it, despite all his kind of bravado as he's going through it, you know.
No, 100%. I completely agree with you on that. That is exactly, I think, what drives him to decide to take his life into his own hands. And, you know, the matter, like, he knows he's got 4 months to live. He doesn't want to see Anna die in front of him, like, you know, he did with Woodbine. So I think that's a perfect thing. Talking of Anna, Ashley Jensen, has she ever been better? I mean, she's a fantastic actress, but oh my God, in this, she's just incredible.
Well, the thing with her is that we're sort of used to seeing her. I mean, the first thing I ever saw her in was Extras, which she's fantastic in. I mean, she's a perfect kind of foil for Ricky Gervais' character in Extras. And Ricky Gervais is kind of playing a bit of a version of himself in Extras, I think, more so than as David Brent, but she's just brilliant in it. Yeah. But, you know, she's got a real sort of comedic vein, I think, Ashley Jensen. So we're used to seeing her in these sort of funny roles. You know, like, this is a incredibly emotionally charged role. You know, playing the sort of soulmate of someone who she's entirely devoted to, who is kind of furtively taking the decision to end his own life with his best mate. And she has so many incredibly moving moments and lines in this. You know, I think the one that really resonated was, with me, is that she says something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing a bit, she says, you know, Noodles has had years and years and years with Tully. Yeah. You know, I've only had, I can't remember what she says, I've only had X amount of years. Do you know what I mean? And, she, you know, there's a real authenticity about that, I can imagine. You know what I mean? Like, a real authenticity about it. You know, like, I've known you for almost 25 years. I've been with my wife for 18 years. But the relationship I have with you is very different. Well, obviously, very different to what I've. Yeah, not
less sexual.
Not quite as much sex. But you know, there is that. We come back to it again. There is something about that close male friendship that as much as that, I don't think like marriage or even long-term fiancé, it's something, it can't quite always penetrate it. Do you know what I mean? There's always going to be, sorry, that was a poor choice of words there, but
I'm giggling here like a schoolboy.
But, you know, I think there's always going to be that, you know, like wives, girlfriends, I think they like the fact that their husbands, boyfriends have really close best friends, and they sort of think it's sort of cute, or, you know, it's nice. It's nice. Oh, it's really nice. You know, Greg's got his best friend that he's been best friends with for 25 years nearly, and they do a podcast and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think, you know, no disrespect to my wife, but I don't think she really understands how deep the friendship goes. You know, but I think that's what Ashley Jensen does brilliantly. Is Anna, she acknowledges this incredibly long-standing emotional friendship, but as she starts to she begins to understand how deep it is from Noodles helping Tully, and that's when it becomes difficult for her. Like, along with the fact that Tully's made this decision that he doesn't want to go for as long as he can. He wants to end his life before it gets really bad and debilitating. But the friendship part of it as well, she feels betrayed by this friendship. And excluded by it, you know, which would be incredibly difficult for the partner, whether it was male or female, to be going to have to deal with in a situation like this, you know?
I think it's Iona that says it, or kind of towards the end, like when Noodles says, like, I'm his best friend, you know, I've known him all these years. And Iona says, yeah, but tomorrow Fiona's, Anna's going to be his wife.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's what do you put, where does the hierarchy come?
Yeah.
Best friend, wife, like, it's kind of, and that's a beautiful way of kind of putting it in terms of what's more important there.
I think sorry, just to jump in to your point there, again, I think there's a generational thing there. Because, for me, I'm a child of divorce. You were raised by your mum. There never a lot to do with your dad. Do you know what I mean? So, like, for you and I think and people like us, people of our respective generations, there is a kind of, well, this guy's my best mate. No matter what happens with my relationship with my partner, wife, husband, whatever, this guy's still going to be my best mate. I think generationally, because divorce was less common, people, would stay together for better or worse, as the vow goes, until the end of one of the other's lives. The friendship for us is much more important because we don't know what's going to happen, right? I know that you and I will always be friends. I hope I stay married for the rest of my life. But, things could happen, which I know that I'll always have you. I hope I'll always have my wife. But, I might not for a number of reasons.
I think given Ashley Jensen's history, I don't know if you're aware, her husband took his own life in 2017. So
I didn't know that.
This must have been a difficult role for her to take on.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can see the raw emotion in that. Like, and it's almost a performance of, like, has a quality of, you can see, like, someone that's gone through something similar in their own life. Yeah. And I think that really resonates, and she's just absolutely fantastic. But she switches so well. The first time you meet her is the dinner scene where they're with Tully and Noodles, and when Tully says Anna's big fuck off wedding day, and she's like, well, did you not think to ask me?
Yeah.
And you can see she's kind of angry and emotional, and it, again, brilliant by Compston. That part where he just picks up his plate and Tully's plate and just fucking walks off, because I would do exactly the same. Like, I'm getting out of here. Let's leave this. But I think she's angry and she's upset, but she also knows that he's only got 4 months to live.
Yeah.
So she can't be angry and upset with him because there's only 4 months they've got together. And that beautiful line of, why would I want to marry a big baby that doesn't eat his blueberries?
Yeah.
It's just, it just fucking quashes any tension, anything. And then when she says, like, if you do the chemo, I'll marry you.
Yeah.
And that forces him into being like, okay, fine, I'll do the chemo. And it's so beautifully played, that scene, and so understated. Just a wide shot in the kitchen with Martin Compston fucking doing the dishes. And it's so well done, that scene.
She's got a lot of great moments. I mean, there's a scene when Tully's sort of frustration overtakes him and he has a bit of a pop at her. She says, I'm not your cat to kick, Yeah. And she sort of stands up to him. And then there's another moment when they're sort of having a bit of a cuddle and he says he wants to be by himself. And she says, well, that's fine. I've got a lot more important things to do,
Yes.
But obviously, she doesn't have anything more important to do. But,
No.
She understands him. She understands why he does maybe need a moment by himself, she ascertains that this is, I can't compare this to anything, and if he needs to be by himself, I've got to give him what he wants.
Let me be on my own. I'm better in the tunnel on my own.
Okay. I've got far more important things to be doing anyway, so, I'll just be in the kitchen if you need me, though. Okay.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, she's fantastic in it, and I hope it leads to a lot. I mean, she's just taken over from Dougie Henshall in Shetland, which is another dramatic role. And before this, she was doing Afterlife again with Gervais, playing the nurse looking after his dad who was suffering from dementia, and she's got some fucking great moments in that as well. Again, she's going through, she's acting out scenarios that a lot of people will really identify with, and her frustration. Like, I think in the book, Anna's, and maybe it's because the book is from the perspective of Noodles, so we don't get the Tully and Anna moments together, because it's all seen through the eyes of Noodles. So every time we're with Tully and Anna, Noodles is there as well, but she seems to sort of come round to what Tully wants to do a bit quicker in the book, and she's not quite as spiky with Noodles, although she is a little bit at certain moments. But I think the portrayal of Anna, how it's written in the show and how it's performed by Ashley Jensen is, I would go as far to say a lot more authentic than how the character develops in the book,
No, I think, I agree. She's fantastic in terms of it just gets the right kind of, just right on in terms of someone who doesn't want to see the man that she loves dying and is upset about him wanting to end his own life, but kind of understands and is slightly jealous of the friendship, but can also understand it as well. It's a fucking beautiful performance.
Well, the thing is, as well, is it that she understands it, or she accepts it?
Accepts it.
She's I need to accept it because this is what it is. Like I said before, I think sometimes. And women have incredibly close friendships with very best friends and things, but I think sometimes with women of a certain generation, as I mentioned before, I don't think because the guys in their lives or they grew up with or whatever, it's difficult for them to it's difficult for them to understand that guys can have close friendships, as close as women, easily. And I think that's what she does well here. She doesn't really understand it because of the generation she comes from, but she does accept it,
Speaking of the friendship thing, I thought that's one thing they did really well in terms of when they're hanging out as groups of mates. And it's exactly the stuff that we would do, me, you, and our mutual friend, in terms of top 3 Robert De Niro films.
Yeah, I love that.
And then doing quizzes on quotes and stuff. And even when Tully is they're in the fucking centre where he is about to die. And he's like, top 3 biscuits. And it's like, that's exactly the kind of thing we would do. It's so well done. That is exactly what guys would do.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. You can't choose a wagon wheel because technically it's not a biscuit.
Why is it not a biscuit? I don't know. Is it a biscuit? What is? I guess it's a confectionery item.
It's more like a cake. There's too much soft cream and it's too spongy to be a biscuit. A biscuit's got to have a bit of bite in it,
That's true. What are your top 3 biscuits?
Caramel wafer.
Is that a biscuit?
Yeah.
Well, I'll allow it.
Jammy Dodger, but it has to be the Marks and Spencer's jam sandwich creams.
Get you! You fucking changed, haven't you? Marks and Spencer.
Not really. My mum, for my entire life, she calls those Marks and Spencer's jam sandwich creams Jammy Dodgers, although they're not really, because Jammy Dodgers are just biscuit and jam, and they're called Jammy Dodgers. But she's always called them Jammy Dodgers, even with the cream in them. And you weren't really allowed to eat them in her house growing up because they were my mum's. She might let you have one with a cup of tea. They certainly weren't put on the plate for visitors, and they were just there was all for her. So yeah, so jam sandwich, cream, and then probably like the humble bourbon.
Yeah,
I think
bourbon would be my top three. Yeah, definitely.
I think a hobnob as well. I think a digestive with dairy spread on it. That's a little nice.
I said three.
Sorry,
you're taking the piss now.
Yeah, take me down a biscuit rabbit hole there. So the other thing that I think we should talk about, not quite as heavy as the other stuff we've just been talking about, but the soundtrack for this is fucking epic.
Yeah. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, if I could get married again, and if Paula and I decide to renew our vows, I think I'm definitely going to have Pearly Raindrops by the Cocteau Twins as they're coming down the aisle. Music.
Are you going to suggest that you renew your vows just so you can do that?
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, the soundtrack's amazing. I mean, of course, it's like fucking 1986, so it's all the fucking great 80s tunes. And when they go to that concert and all the music's playing, it's fucking brilliant. And it's just raw emotion of those five guys just coming off the bus. England's getting rode. Just fucking brilliant. Like, it's fantastic. Yeah, take me back.
Yeah, brilliant. And I thought Tony Curran's rendition of Oblivion by Aztec Camera, pretty fucking good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. I need to ask you, because obviously you're from the West Coast, like Dealey. I've never heard the phrase "get a large dug up you." Have you heard that before?
Never heard that either.
No.
No. Maybe that's an Ayrshire.
Just wanted to ask that.
Maybe it's an Ayrshire thing. Maybe perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. Never heard that before. I mean, my last kind of notes are like the subject matter of this is so challenging, but it never felt like exploitative in a way.
No.
Like it was so it's such a harsh and sensitive subject matter, but it just felt so well done. And it doesn't so much focus on Tully's illness, but it more focuses on the relationships with the family and friends. And I think the dialogue is so natural and emotional and very believable. And the biggest point for me was that it's a really moving commentary on both the nature of long-time friendship, but also the idea that and it hits the nail on the head here, I think. When a person is dying, the people who aren't dying seem to think they know what's better for that person.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, you're right. 100%. My dad... My dad never wanted a conventional funeral, So obviously you and a mutual friend came to my dad's funeral. And, but he wasn't religious, my dad. So it was in, a sort of humanist ceremony in the crematoria, But my dad, before that, he was always, I don't want a funeral. Just put my coffin in the corner of the pub. Everybody have a drink. At some point, you can have the Undertaker come and take me out, and take me off to the crematorium.
What, Mark Calloway?
What do you mean?
The Undertaker. Mark Calloway. The Undertaker. WWF wrestler.
Sorry, no. It's like at some point, you can, if one of you wants to come with me to the crematorium, then you can. But if you don't want to, it's fine, because I won't know anyway. And I was like, well, what you're describing is a bit of a sort of gypsy funeral, I think, really. I don't know how if I would feel pretty good about a couple of pints sitting on top of your coffin and us all standing around. So really, for him, the reason that we had what we had for him is because it was important to my stepmom, so he conceded to the crematorium and a humanist service for her, because she felt that people would want to go to something like that and, and remember him that way, which, you were there. It was fine. I mean...
It wasn't fine, man. It was a beautiful ceremony. It wasn't fine. It was beautiful.
It was nice. It was a nice ceremony. It's not really, it wasn't my dad. It's not what he'd have wanted. He'd have much preferred us all standing around in the pub talking about him and sharing stories and things, and the sort of...
And that's what we did later.
That's what we did later. Yeah, you're right. And the sort of solemn part of it to be done, for us all to be sort of spared that, I think, is what he wanted, because I'm sure he went to enough funerals in his time. That's kind of what he would have spared us, I think. But, he made concessions for my stepmom, and we did what we did. And you're right, it was nice. And it was good later on, back in the Coachman in Kilsyth, talking about them and having a drink and having a bite to eat and everything. So, but, you know, I think when you're leaving people behind, I think, you know, the one sort of disconnect I've got with this is that I guess there's a school of thought to say that Tully's a bit selfish about it. You know, he's not really considering the people that are going to be affected the most by his passing, particularly Anna. You know, because she, you know, as was said before, for her it's very difficult. The fact that she's not, that there is a day that she has to build up to where he's going to be gone, you know. So I think, and it doesn't take away my understand. I understand Tully, and I do respect the bravery that he is shown by doing what he's doing. You know, the decision to end your life that way, I think, is incredibly brave. But the other side of it is it's also very, very difficult for the people that are going to be left to grieve for you after you're gone. Do you know what I mean? So for my dad's case, he made some concessions for someone close to him, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, actually. It's a quandary. Is it selfish, or is it just, you know, at the end of the day, you're the fucker that's dying, so...
But the other thing is...
You want to go out on your own terms.
The other side of it is you're sparing, as he says in this, you know, you're sparing the people you love the most from the pain of watching you deteriorate and eventually pass away, you know? So...
Yeah.
You know, it's not for us to debate. You know, this debate's been going on for a long time, ever since these clinics in Switzerland first began. You know, we'll never, well, it's for us to debate, but we're never going to legislate it, you know, so, but it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one line that stands out to me is when Tully says to Needles, like, I want her to remember me whole. And I think that is kind of a massive sign of, I want to remember you healthy and, you know, enjoying myself and being good looking, not fucking bald and
withered and
having withered and having to piss into a tube and not being able to get out of bed and gasping for breath. So I think, I can understand that. But as we both said, having both lost parents to it, neither of us remember our parents like that.
No, so for sure. I mean, my last memory of my dad is him in the hospital. My dad was active, you know, kind of a real countryside guy, fishing, shooting, sociable and everything, you know. So, you know, the last time I saw him, he was in the hospital and all that had been taken away from him, you know. But I choose not to think of him that way, you know. And I have stacks of photographs that I took from his house after he passed away that, you know, that I'll keep forever, of him younger. You know, in some case, I've got photographs of him even from before I was born, with his long hair and his purple vest. And he's, you know, posing in my granny's back garden as if he's trying to get in the 1972 Vogue annual, you know. You know, and you're right. You know, that is how, I think that's how we all deserve to be remembered by the people that we leave behind. We should be remembered at our best, you know, not at our lowest ebb. And, you know, the line that I'll always take from this, that if I'm being quite honest, I've considered maybe getting a wee tattoo of, is the line from Anthony and Cleopatra that Noodles talks about, make death proud to take us. Yeah. You know,
beautiful line.
It's incredibly powerful line. You know, and when you think of that line in the last scene in the show of Tully playing keepy up and finally scoring the goal that he was never able to score in front of his father, is right before he goes for the final administration of the medicine that's going to ultimately take his life, is, you know, incredibly powerful.
You have everything you need, all right? Just ask anything.
Don't let me die like a prick.
We all die like pricks.
I mean it. What's your quote? The Anthony and Cleopatra one.
Make death proud to take us.
That's it. That's the one.
I thought it was quite brave for them to end it on that, because I mean, it's been 2 years since I read the book, but they do.
The book ends.
Watch him die.
No, they don't. The book ends the same way.
Does it? No.
Yeah, but
does it? Okay.
In the book, he doesn't sort of play keepy up and then score the goal. The scene's a lot shorter. The ball is in the garden and the goals are there, and it just talks about Tully kind of bearing down on the ball and hoofing it into the net. You know.
Okay.
And I'm kind of glad, I liked, because I thought the book might end that way, with a kind of melancholy Noodles watching his friend's life slip away and holding his hand and everything. I like the fact that it ended that way, because I think it's a test. It's kind of true to the character, because the character all the way through of Tully is gregarious and funny, gallows humour and everything, and energetic, apart from the moments when he kind of loses his breath in bed, and when you hear him being sick and everything else. For the most part, he's a vibrant character, and for our last sort of moment with him to be scoring a goal in the garden of the hospital, or the clinic rather, that's going to end his life, I think is brilliant.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to end it, actually. You're right. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Speaking of which,
it's time shall
we put Mayflies to the Swally Awards?
Yeah, we definitely should. Okay, well, we'll go straight into it. So the first award then is our Bobby the Barman Award for the best pub, isn't it?
I mean, the pub they were always in, like, it looked fucking great. But then when they had the flashback, when Tully was playing with the band, it flashed back to the 80s, and you saw like the old Tennant's ice holders and ashtrays and stuff. I was like, I'd love to go to that fucking bar in the 80s. It looked fucking amazing.
Yeah, I've got that. I like that pub, and also the pub that Tully does the Aztec camera cover in as well. It's another good pub.
It's the same pub, isn't it?
Well, I think it's supposed to be the same pub, yeah. I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be or not, but... Yeah.
I think it's the same pub they always go to, yeah. But yeah, it looked like a great pub. I'd love to go there.
Yeah. So the Cosmo Award then is the next one for being everything Scottish. So we've not really spoken about her, because it's she's not really in it that much, but I went for Elaine C. Smith, who plays Tully's mum, who's suffering from dementia. I thought she was really good. I thought she was fantastic in that role. But when I was sort of thinking about who my archetypal Scottish actor could be in the production, I went with her. What did you go for?
Elaine C. Smith.
Oh, you did?
She's not in it that much. I mean, I had a slash, like Elaine C. Smith stroke Stephen McCall, purely because Stephen McCall, with his appearance in this, Greg, he is now 1 point clear of Alex Norton and Peter Mullen on the Swally tally. He is out in the lead now. He's on 14.
He's also kind of a friend of the podcast as well. I mean, I don't know if he I don't know if he listens, but I know that he and Mrs. McCall do follow us on Instagram, and he did say that he would come on. So maybe we should
we need to get him on.
Let's get him on at some point.
Let's get him on. Stephen, if you listen, give us a shout. We'll get you
on. I'll write to him on Instagram and see if he still fancies coming on and having a chat.
But Elaine C. Smith was my first choice, because purely, like, I think we said this in the podcast before, like, literally everything she has done in her entire career is Scottish.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'll give it to Elaine C. Smith.
Yeah, great. Yeah, she's brilliant. She's so good in it. And I've been really enjoying her in the latest series of Two Doors Down as well. I just finished it the other day. She's
so good.
She's so good in it. The next award, and I don't think we've got anybody we can give this one to, but the Jake McQuillan Your Tease Out Award. There's not really any violence, is there?
There's nothing. There's a wee scuffle, like, towards the end of episode 2 between Hogg and Tibbs.
Yeah.
But that's it. Yeah. We didn't even talk about really Carl Mack.
No, we didn't. And we should, because he's definitely a friend of the pod.
Yeah, and looking great. Like, it took me a while to recognise it was Carl Mack.
Yeah.
But, yeah, fantastic as Tibbs.
Yeah.
But, the wee scuffle between them, that was it.
Yeah. Next then, again, no nudity in this one. So the Hugh McGregor Award remains in its envelope, as they say.
Nothing at all.
Right, the next award, I'm relying on you because I didn't write anything down for, but it's the Francis Begbie Gratuitous Swearing Award.
Oh, fuck. How could you not? There's like about 3 or 4. Like, I've got 3.
It's ridiculous.
Written down. So, there's the obvious one, which is the very first swear word, which I know we both love the use of this word just in this context, when he turns to Noodles, goes, "I'm fucked, Noodles."
Yeah.
And love that. However, the other 2 that I loved were, "We don't need a fucking air purifier. We've got enough shite."
Yeah.
But I also liked when he gives Noodles his ticket to because Noodles has lost his ticket, so he gives Noodles his ticket to the thing, and he goes, "I've got the gift of the gab, which is more than you've got, you fucking spam."
Yeah. Yeah, they're all great. I don't know why I didn't write anything down. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm tempted to say that I was too carried away by the narrative, maybe, I don't know, but nothing really stuck in my mind. So the next one then, as I mentioned earlier on, I think there's a lot of both overt and subtle versions of this, is the archetypal Scottish moment.
Well, you mentioned you've got a few, so let's go for it. What have you got?
So I've got... Like, the first one that springs to mind is just the adversity to something horrendous. You know, that kind of bravery. You know, we're not called Scotland the Brave for nothing. I think the bravery of being able to accept something like that in the way that Tully accepts what's happening to him, with, that he doesn't waver for a second. There's never a moment where he wobbles a little bit. His concern, like the moment when I think we're sort of led to believe that he thinks to himself, I'm going to just drown myself in the sea. And he goes to the...
Oh, yeah, of course.
He goes to the
caravan. Speak about that.
Yeah, he goes to the caravan and but he starts marching into... that must have been fucking Baltic, by the way. He starts marching into the water and Anna arrives in the nick of time, and he sort of runs back and he plays it down, and his concern is all for her. And that kind of, I just feel that takes the complete absence of self-pity, the complete presence of concern is only for the people that are going through it with him, is I think there's some, and other nationalities might listen to this and say, oh no, we do the same thing, but maybe you do, but speaking from experience, it feels incredibly Scottish. That incredible bravery. This isn't going to change me. But the one that I went for, not quite as profound, is going to an English city for the first time and just fucking taking over.
Yeah, within the record shop, that is amazing, actually. It's like the record shop guys that we just fucking get out.
Yeah. What about you? What'd you go for?
When they see Johnny Marr and they climb over his Rolls Royce, go for it, your fanny. And the line, he means it affectionately. It's a Scottish thing. We insult the people we love.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a great one. I love the moment after when they pick up Johnny Marr's discarded cigarette. Oh, his cow's arsed it.
But it's true. It is a Scottish thing. We insult the people we love.
We do.
It's meant as a sign of affection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think any other nationality uses the word cunt quite as often as we do, and in so many different ways.
I remember being at a team meeting and saying something, and I said cunt, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm Scottish, I just use that word as punctuation. And everyone laughed. Like
off the hook. Right, finally then, the Sean Connery Award. Who wins the production for you?
For me, I mean, all three leads are fantastic in terms of Compston, Jensen and Curran, but it's Tony Curran.
Yeah.
Has to be.
I'm in complete agreement. I just think he's up.
It's a tour de force of a performance.
Yeah.
In this. Like, he's amazing. Playing someone that's battling cancer, and he is, like I say, as I said earlier in the episode, Compston, I take nothing away from him. First viewing, it's Martin Compston. Second viewing, he is brilliant.
Yeah.
But Curran has so much more range. Like, he's battling an illness and he's laughing, and for him to be so down and miserable, and then the next scene you see him, I'm on steroids, and dancing around, and he's in the pub like, you're feeling better. I'm on class A drugs needles, but I know there's going to be a come down. And little things like when he leaves the fucking drugs and I can't remember the guy's grave. It's Limbo.
Limbo's grave.
When he leaves the drugs in Limbo's grave, and Noodles is like, no, but someone might pick it up, and he's like, just leave it. Noodles, it's fine. It's Tony Curran's show.
Yeah,
and
it's so intuitive.
Don't get me wrong. It's a two-hander. It's kind of a three-hander in a way with Jensen, but it is a two-hander with Compston and Curran. But yeah, Curran wins it for me.
I just think he's so intuitive, Curran. You know what I mean? Like, all the stuff that I went on about earlier about him coming from the same generation as Tully and understanding what growing up in the 80s was like as a teenager and a young man and everything else. But, I don't know if he has had people close to him go through something like what Tully has gone through. But as I say, he's he's so intuitive, you really feel like he understands, and he doesn't take it lightly as much as his character overtly is. I don't know if that's fair actually that Tully takes it lightly, but Curran certainly doesn't take it lightly. You know what I mean? I think he understands that there'll be people watching this, like you and I, who have lost parents or people that are incredibly close to them to cancer and everything. And he kind of wants to do it justice. But, that fundamental understanding, I think, he, on the face of it, he might seem to handle it a little clumsily, but when you really analyse it like we have, there's no clumsiness about it. He completely gets it,
Do you think, though, for him to be into so much the kind of mid-80s Manchester scene, which he obviously is in terms of music to listen to, but it's quite evident throughout the show that his favourite band are Dexy's Midnight Bandits.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a fucking great touch. Like,
well,
because he mentions it about 4 times, like in terms of like Dexys or his favourite band.
Yeah,
and it's made me want to go back and listen to Dexys.
Well, I was listening to
I think I'm going to do.
I was listening to Kevin Rowland on Stuart Whiffin's not hardcore listing, his other podcast where he interviews. I forget that
off the beaten
track. And I've heard Kevin Rowland being interviewed a couple of times, and he's an interesting guy. Really interesting guy. But yeah, I fucking love a bit of Dexys. I mean, I think if I met somebody who said they didn't like Dexys Midnight Runners, I don't think I could ever really go any further with them.
I think they got a lot of flack because of Come On Eileen, because it is like the ultimate wedding song.
But it's a great song. It's a banger.
Belter.
It is an absolute banger.
Absolute banger, but it is like the ultimate wedding song. However, they have so many other great tracks as well. Like Dexys are fucking great band.
Jackie Wilson.
Oh, she knows.
She knows.
Jockey Wilson
says, I've just bought a tropical fish tank.
I'm still wondering, because there's an urban myth that was actually done on purpose.
Well, maybe.
Possibly. They put the Jockey Wilson picture there, but it's well, fair. Anyway, so that was Mayflies, and highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Bring tissues.
Yeah.
Not for that reason, but
I mean, it's incredible. I've had a bit of a fucking emotional week because obviously I've been preparing for the podcast. I also watched It's a Sin, the Russell T Davies Channel 4 drama.
Phenomenal.
Which I absolutely loved, was profoundly moved by. And then if that wasn't enough, I attended via video link a funeral of somebody yesterday who passed away far too young. And I was a bit pissed last night after that, because, and if I'm being quite honest, I'm a bit pissed now because I kind of needed a drink to get through this. I'm actually drinking from a box of wine here.
Jesus Christ, I can see the box of wine that Greg has just presented. Fucking hell. You are the son of the Jakey.
I know, but I was thinking last night, because the funeral of my friend who passed away, it was all, as all funerals are, very sad, but it was all, he had young sons and everything else. So, it was tough. And I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to ask Nicky how he feels about this. Rather than a funeral, I think I would like my body to be packed into a rocket and fired, but not into space, just above wherever I live, so it blows up and bits of me kind of rain down on my neighbours and things, because I like the thought of my last physical act to be one that really annoys people that I don't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. You up for doing that?
No, I want my body to be packed with explosives and fired into Ibrox during an old firm going.
Fair enough. I thought that works just as well, I think. Anyway,
although the old firm don't exist anymore,
well, that's
so
true.
I can't
That's true.
do that. So,
but the fans still exist.
Yeah, fannies. Okay, right. So Mayflies was my choice, Greg. So why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about on the next episode of the Culture Swally?
So I've gone for the 2026 movie Your Da Sells Avon, starring
Can't fucking wait.
No, in all seriousness, I've gone, I've gone for the 2006 a historical drama directed by producer of Trainspotting Kevin MacDonald and starring tiny James McAvoy, Forrest Whitaker on his Swally debut, The Last King of Scotland.
Oh, that famous Scottish film set in fucking Uganda.
At some point we're going to run out of Scottish stuff, right? So, there's a very, very strong case for The Lair of the White Worm in October of this year.
Last King of Scotland, fucking hell. I think I watched it when it first came out. I haven't seen it since.
Me neither.
Wow. I'm kind of looking forward to revisiting that actually.
As am I.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
Wow, Last King of Scotland. I know I think I mentioned that before in the podcast. I was like, does it qualify? And we're like, I think you said, well, we've done fucking Highlander, so yeah, I think it qualifies. But it does.
It does.
It's got Scotland in the title. It's starts in Scotland. It's got James McAvoy and Idi Amin is obsessed with Scotland.
Exactly.
I think there's a scene he wears a kilt.
There is.
And plays bagpipes or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right, Last King of Scotland on the next episode of The Swally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can get in touch with us with any news items you'd like us to cover, or any films you'd like us to cover, or TV shows, or if you want to get in touch with us about Peter Capaldi's long fingers, then you can on cultureswally@gmail.com.
Yeah, and we've also... We've also got a website. You can find us at cultureswally.com. I might put a picture up of Peter Capaldi's elegant hands for the ladies. But there's also links to all our episodes. There's a 3 or 4 part blog about Sean Connery. We've got an article about Scottish television in the past and Scottish horror. So come over and check us out.
And you can follow us on Insta at cultureswallypod or on X, formerly known as Twitter, at SwallyPod. Right then, Greg.
Okay. Yeah.
So
let's go for a bit of a lie down after that one.
Yeah, I think so. It was a long one and an emotional one.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit I cried about 3 times during this episode.
Yeah, but if you are affected by any of the issues that come up in Mayflies, there are tons of charities, cancer research, Macmillan, etc., people that are there to talk to that can handle things a lot better than perhaps we have. But we've all been through it, and you're not alone.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree with you on that, Greg. Yeah. Okay. Right. I guess there's no need for a funny outro now. We've just had that depressing kind of episode. So I guess we'll just say...
Until next time.
Until next time.
I can't believe Anna's going along with Switzerland. It's against everything she believes in.
She doesn't know. Not yet.
For fuck's sake.
I know.
It's illegal. You could get arrested. Jimmy, he's asking you to help him kill himself. Imagine how you'll feel after, when it's over. You'd have to live with it, knowing you were the one that took him there. She'll never forgive you, either of you. You can't. You'll break her heart.
Our heart's going to break either way. He's my friend.
But Anna's going to be his wife on Saturday. Would he do it for you?
Without hesitation.